Welcome to Link Paris 2026. I am Rodrigo Rivera from Chile. I'm from Link Online. And today we have a very special guest. He needs no much of an introduction. He's Professor Adnan Siddiqui from Buffalo. Welcome, Professor Siddiqui. So you were talking about the future of neurointervention, and we have seen all the evolution in the last decade, so about intervention in aneurysms and AVMs and fistulas and MMAs, it's a big field. So what about the next step? What about the future in the topic of electrophysiology or mapping the function of the brain?
So I agree with you. It's been a great time to be in neurointervention. Where the shackles have come off, where we are now treating stroke on a routine basis, and we already were treating aneurysms and fistulous diseases. But it's been a gradual march towards other diseases. And the first thing that we really went after was headaches, whether they're caused by intracranial hypertension or intracranial hypotension, or chronic subdural hematomas, and now even with migraines. So I think I can see that we are moving more towards an interaction with the function of the brain rather than just deal with ischemic or hemorrhagic risk, which is our current state. And in that regard, I think the next step, which has been proven to us by Vincent Castellat, is that you can do endovascular electrophysiology. So patients who have epilepsy disorders, they require, before surgical resection can be managed, depth electrodes into different parts of the brain, 10, 15 electrodes, probes on both sides, as well as sometimes a large craniotomy to put a subdural grid. These are major invasive procedures, infection risk, spinal fluid risk, discomfort. All of those things considered, we can do the same thing as Vincent has shown, through a single jugular puncture. Put the same electrodes into cerebrovenous system and record the same signals. So I think that opens up the entire field of electrophysiology.
And why do you think that the endovascular is the way to go for what is the advantage of going through the arteries or the veins to the brain?
So I'm more a fan of going through veins than arteries for two purposes. The risk of going through arteries is significant in terms of ischemic risk, embolic risk. Venous intervention, on the other hand, is extremely well tolerated. We just need to learn the veins and how to navigate the veins, which is not the same thing as the arteries. The bigger reason, though, is that if you can get the same information as doing a major craniotomy with 10 depth electrodes through a jugular punch without opening the skull, I think both the patient and the physicians, if they can get the same quality data, would love the opportunity. I think that's a much better way of doing things. As we have realized with everything we have done thus far, for example, ISAT proved that endovascular treatment for coilable aneurysms was better than clipping. It's the same progress. We're moving towards less invasive, less destructive, smaller, better tolerated procedures. And why not for electrophysiology?
We're not only collecting the data of the brain, but now we can move to make things with that information. Is that what we are going to see?
So you're absolutely right. So I so far talked about electrophysiology and recording brain activity. But what are you going to do with that recording? Can you potentially alter brain function by interpreting signals and then manipulating change? So absolutely, I think that's the next step. It's already in the works. We are doing first-in-man trials in the United States, looking at brain-computer interface, which allows a locked-in ALS patient or quadriplegic patient to be able to interact with their environment, text, surf the internet, manipulate their home environment, take care of themselves, message, things that they were never able to do prior to this can now be done because of brain-computer interface. So that's in my mind, the very first step towards proving the utility of the endovascular approach for this function.
And how about AI in this field? Is helping also to enhance all this functionality?
So a way of thinking about what we're saying here is that we now have established that we can get endovascular access to the brain signals. And you know, our brains produce a lot of signals. And so you need the power of AI to make sense of it all, to be able to filter out the noise, to derive the actual meaningful signal that you're searching. And I think that's what we will need to do to be able to convert people who can't speak to be able to talk, people who can't move to be able to move their arms and legs. I think that is definitely coming down the pike, and we will need all the computational power we can get to be able to interpret and then translate that brain activity.
So when we start practicing this in this field, like I think like 20 years ago or more, do you imagine that we could be doing this in 2026?
No, I really did not. I think neuroendovascular was a vascular specialty. We took care of vascular diseases, and some of them. And we had a lot of sort of hostility from traditional open sort of approaches. And you can see that those barriers have progressively gone down and down and down. And finally, we have achieved the kind of technological advancement that allows us to wander away from just pure vascular intervention to brain mapping and then brain interaction.
So thank you, Professor Siddiqui, for answering these questions, and I really appreciate your time. And thanks because the field, the future of the field, it's impressive. So thank you very much.
It's an exciting time to be here with you, Rodrigo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.